Just my audio. Right. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Perfect. Good afternoon. My name's Anton Cole. I'm an Albanian in London working with startups normally right after they get investment. I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and some accelerators. And I also help some angels and family offices with their due diligence and assessment. If we can please start with Rachel, then Nadine, and last but not least, Adrian.
Thanks, Anton. I'm Rachel Spun. I've got more years of experience than I care to remember, which is why I've got grey hair. However, I work with startups and scale-ups around commercial growth. So consultative sales, consultative solutions right across the commercial cycle from outreach all the way through to client development. Hate the term account management because it's passive, and particularly tech and SaaS. And for me, B2B, focus on the C, tech and SaaS, truly innovative and nice people. So purpose-led, value-driven, and honest and transparent. They're my key requirements. So yeah, thanks. Over to you, Nadine.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, I'm Nadine Campbell. I am a founder and strategic consultant. My background is marketing and business strategy and solutions. So I've worked for the last 20 years in some of the biggest brands in the world, like Unilever, Ford, and Samsung, and now I work with some of the smallest brands. I work with startups and scale-ups primarily, as well as some fractional work. So I work across both, and what I try to do is to help find great businesses, help them to scale, work on acquisition and retention, and ensure that you have a product that is fit for market. So I do quite a lot of work with accelerators and growth panels. Happy to chat to anyone that is looking for some help with scaling their business and is ready to grow and be successful in 2026. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adrian, a reluctant lawyer turned a few times startup founder, and now building AI first operations that help founders and small teams and businesses punch way above their weight in terms of internal operations. That's me.
Oh, that is amazing. Thank you very much, team. Really appreciate your time today. Well, you've heard them, people. We've got a brilliant panel, and we're going to make use of them for the next 52 minutes. The idea is quite simple. We're going to have now some do's and don'ts from them in terms of what's important when it comes to early stage growth. And then we'll open it for the Q&A. Just a reminder to those of you that have just joined the live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there live, but we are here on Microsoft Teams audio only, by the way, to take any questions you may have in terms of growing your business from either 0 to 1 or perhaps going from 0 to hero for that matter. The idea is that once you do make it onto our Microsoft Teams call, which, by the way, quickest way to do that from the live streams is either click on the links that we've shared on those live streams or simply go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. So again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. You scroll down a little bit, you'll find today's session, Startup Growth Q&A 164. Click join. It's a quick registration on Luma. There you'll find today's link, and through that, you'll then be able to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Being audio only, it means that you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device, and it doesn't matter whether you're having lunch in Liverpool or cooking it somewhere in Aberdeen, or perhaps walking your dog in Surrey, or maybe working from an office, a shared office in Shoreditch, or perhaps, I don't know, changing baby nappers in Dorset. It doesn't matter where you are. It's easy to tune in and join us from anywhere. Once you're here, then simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, introduce yourself, and fire away with your question. With that in mind, maybe we can get some do's and don'ts. I'm sure our panelists have seen some horror stories out there, but also stuff that impressed them in terms of how founders tend to try and grow their business. So maybe we can start with this on, let's go with Nadine, then Rachel, and last but not least, Adrian. We can have one do and one don't each, and let's not use the same logic for both, please. Take it away, Nadine.
Thank you, Anton. So as we're talking about growth, I'm going to say my do is do think commercially. There's a lot of businesses out there that are great businesses, but not necessarily commercial ones. So if you're thinking about how to make revenue and live off your business and change your lifestyle, then you must think commercially. It has to be about what's the bottom line. You don't want to be paying for customers. Customers should be paying you, right? And the don't is well, how can I say this? Don't think in the box, think out the box, right? So I think there are some common solutions and blueprints that one could follow, but you don't always need to do that. You can be avant-garde and you can try new things in order to be successful. So think wide and think big. Thank you.
So thanks, Nadine. Following on from that, actually, so thinking commercial, think wide, think big. Think in the client's terms. So do think in terms of what success looks like for them, and which is not what necessarily success looks like for you. So I've seen far too many people go, we can do this, that, and the other, when actually it's the end solution that you're providing. So what's in it for them in their own terms? So that's the do. And the don't is just because you've got a sale or two sales or three sales, don't assume that that means product market fit. That you really need momentum. So it's don't ignore or don't assume everything's going to be fine just if you've got two or three sales. So it's taking that step back and really analysing the what's in it for them, but why they've bought from you and what solution you're actually solving and what problem you're actually solving, what solution you're actually providing, rather than what you think you're doing. So yeah, over to you, Adrian.
Thanks, Rachel. And I think I'll actually build on that. So from my 8 or so years of building a few startups, had really painful times. So my do is to basically, I think, focus on language market fit before you get to even striving for product market fit, and let your customers with detailed interviews write your copy and your product roadmap and everything for you, because they're telling you their actual pains and ideal outcomes that they want to get to, and what's stopping them from getting to those outcomes. And then on the don't side, don't solve future problems before you've validated the current one. My experience of especially my early founding years, and then speaking to founders that I mentor, is that they often go, oh yeah, I want to raise a fund, I want to build a team, I want to build XYZ. And it's about focusing ruthlessly on what is the most important thing right in front of you. That's me.
Well, thank you very much for that from all three of you. Really appreciate those do's and don'ts. I think it's time we now move on to some questions. I'm hoping I haven't mixed them up, because lately I've been receiving questions twice, because founders get a bit edgy as to why we're not answering their questions. Now, something to remember is that, one, we can only answer so many questions in an hour. Two, I have to try and be relevant to the panel rather than, put in all kinds of questions. And three, frankly, often a lot of the questions are really basic, and I had to kind of look at what can we work with, right? So nevertheless, I'm going to put one in the chat here, and hopefully I haven't mixed it up with questions that have come to us before. The panel can refer to it in the chat, but I'll read it out loud for the live streams. So this is from a D2C, so direct to customer, sustainable cleaning products. They're based near Manchester. They're preparing for Series A, planning to raise in the new year. their situation is that they struggle to stand out against established eco brands. So the question goes, our sustainable cleaning product line is competing with well-known eco brands that dominate social media and retail. How can we implement innovative growth hacking tactics such as limited edition product drops, co-branding with smaller eco-influencers, or gamified royalty programs to build a passionate customer base and expand brand visibility across the UK? Maybe on this, Adrian, do you want to go first? Then we go to Rachel, and last but not least, Nadine.
Sure thing. So I think for me, this comes back to knowing exactly what your target customers really would value about what you're offering, and understanding in their own language what it is that they're looking for, because that then sets the tone for all of the growth hacking or product-led growth tactics that you've mentioned. I think one of the mistakes that founders often make is go, oh, I'm just going to adopt XYZ experiment that I've seen run really well. And what they don't realize is that the most successful growth leaders will have done loads of experiments based on what resonates with their customers, based on their learnings and knowledge of their customers' language, and what they're looking for. So I would say focus on knowing exactly what your customers' language is, and then align the experiments accordingly. And to me, the rule is that your rate of experimentation should match the rate of change in the kind of environment that you're competing in. So rate of experimentation is everything in growth hacking. I'll leave it there in case others want to cover other aspects.
Thanks, Adrian. That thing around language, I think I completely agree. And then building on that, it's there's been consistent, there's been all kinds of research and things done that show that actually brand owners and companies get fed up of their own social content, not just social content, but other, putting out their content there way, way, way before the consumer base does. So following on from, where people are already buying you, where they're hanging out, get in those channels and use their language to kind of keep posting and really keep building. And you'll start seeing there'll be patterns of people who, particularly in D2C, people who are kind of hooking onto it, engaging with it. And they may not be the people you think, but they may be. And then really build relationships with them, try and find out, again, go back to what's in it for them, why they're engaging, use their language, but turn up, be consistent and be prolific. You can't, you seriously will not annoy anybody, because the way the algorithms work, you will keep very few people will see you twice, 3 times, unless they're in slightly different places. So keep banging on and on and on. If your views and conversions then are not happening, then that's a surefire sign that that's not working. So move on to the next thing, but don't give up too early. There's loads of other things, but Nadine's going to have a lot of experience in this. So over to you, Nadine.
Thanks, Rachel. You set me up now, right? Okay, thank you. I'm gonna build on in the style of when it comes to brands that you think are leading the market, they have spent an awful lot of time doing brand awareness, and I think that is often missed. It's, on average, you need to see a brand 7 times before you even consider it. And if you think of a new brand where you know nothing about it, you're going to need even more convincing. So reviews become important, comments become important. That earned part of your marketing product cycle also becomes very important. You've got the paid, things you paid for, the owned, the things that you post on your channel, and the earned. That's what people say about you, and that is something what you really need to work on. So I think you have some good points. Micro influencers are great. Small is good. So don't think that you need 50,000 followers. 5,000 is enough, because as a small business, you have to think about what can you handle. So something, if you're looking to gamify, I think some kind of cleaning challenge will be fun. There are cleaning influencers out there. I enjoy a hack or two about how to clean things. And so maybe it's a case of using your products and showcasing them in the best way through this kind of challenge-based activity that you can do on social media, in order to drive some awareness of your brand, but also showcase what your product can do. So think slightly differently. You have to zag when all the big brands are zigging, right? So do something slightly different to what they're doing. But I agree with what Rachel and Adrian both said. You just keep going, because you don't realize that every time you post something, you're helping someone decide whether to purchase your brand, and you just got to keep doing it over and over. Good luck.
I add on to that as well, which is a really good point, Nadine. Thanks. And I set you up, but I knew you'd be able to more than deliver. I think on that thing as well, it's the how many touch points people actually have versus how many touch points you think they have before they actually buy. And then the other thing I'd also urge you to consider is what's the competition. And it's highly likely that the competition is not other brands that are doing what you're doing or that look similar, particularly if you're premium and it's well, you premium and eco-friendly, whatever. The competition may actually be people doing nothing or using bicarb soda, or I don't know, I'm not the greatest cleaner. My husband does all that. I'm very fortunate. But it's think about what people are doing instead of using you. Are they using brands that look similar? And if so, what's your key differentiator? And that's your messaging. But also, they're probably using other things. So really focus on that. And so don't just go down that rabbit hole of thinking, okay, well, we've got people that look like us, but they've got different packaging, or they're based in different location or sold in different outlets. Really think about what it is they're doing when they're not using you, and build that into all your messaging.
And very briefly building on that, I think it's also worth considering understanding why someone would switch away from an established eco brand. If you don't know that, that's a question and a hypothesis that you then need to go and explore and have those conversations with people who almost bought you but didn't, and understanding that struggle moment and the exact frustration that makes someone open to something new enables you to target that with experiments much more clearly.
Thank you very much. And one thing, if I may add, for those of you that have had the misfortune of listening to me in the past, I am a huge fan of standing on the shoulders of giants. And I get you've asked some brilliant and have some brilliant ideas, I'm assuming, because you've asked, can we do this and that? But when you think about it, all it takes is for you to be able to get your product on the shelves of, I don't know, Tesco's or Asda or whoever, one of these. And that's it. You're laughing all the way to the bank. So I wouldn't disregard that. And I know everybody's trying to do that, but maybe there's a way you can do it. Same time, nothing wrong with having a shop on Amazon or eBay or various other brands that you can do, or some kind of Shopify store. Now, we often, and I'm probably the most annoying, banging on about being niche and drilling down one channel, which is true, because then at least you spend less money and you get better at it. But I'd assume this is one of those things that I would look at different channels simultaneously. And maybe if you find a way to get into, I don't know, a buyer at Sainsbury's and they agree to test that, then you're sorted. But again, I wish you were here, because we could then ask you about these products a little bit further, and especially try and understand whether it's something that you can actually take somewhere, or maybe you're just selling other people's products, and that's a different story. Right here, we've now got 36 minutes to go, so not a ton of time. Therefore, if you're here on Microsoft Teams, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic and you introduce yourself. If you are on the live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So if you do want to ask our panelists anything, you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to get here, it's via startup2scaleup.club. So again, startup2scaleup.club. When you go to that website, simply scroll down a little bit. You'll be able to see Startup Growth Q&A 164. You click join, quick registration on Luma. There you'll be able to find today's link, and through that, you can then join us here. Being audio only means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. And obviously, your questions today can be on anything to do with growth, from user, vendor, partner, client acquisition, growth hacks, go-to-market, or perhaps generic sales, marketing, branding, and advertising. If you've got questions on other matters, then please save them for the other conversations we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can RSVP and register on any of our future sessions via our site, startup2scaleup.club. And by the way, don't be shy, because there are no silly questions. And there's it's a learning curve for us all. So please simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, you introduce yourself, and fire away with your question. We'll now go on to a question from London. The question is in the chat, but I'll read it out loud for the live streams. This is a SaaS product for remote team collaboration. They're based near London. They're at seed stage. The current situation she describes is that users are not incentivized to refer colleagues. So the question she then puts is, our remote team collaboration tool relies on users recommending it to colleagues, but referrals remain low due to the lack of meaningful incentives. How can we design a referral program that leverages tiered rewards such as free subscription extensions for successful referrals or group discounts for teams, whilst integrating gamification features to encourage consistent sharing? Additionally, how can we personalize referral messaging so that it aligns with specific team pain points, making it feel less generic and more relevant to potential new users? Interesting. Right, well, how about we start with Rachel, then Nadine, and last but not least, Adrian, please. What would you do here?
Blimey. So I spent quite some time in gamification and incentives. But this is a really good one, and I need a bit more brain power than I think I've got at the minute. I think though, again, a couple of things. Gamification is essentially points, badges, leaderboards. That's the fundamental of gamification. So again, it goes back to what's in it for people. Why would they want to be referring? What's in it for them? And don't just automatically assume that there's a financial incentive for them, or that people want a financial incentive. Things like prize draws and competitions, that kind of thing, tend to work well in charity donations. So again, I think a lot of this comes down to a dialogue, a conversation, working out what it is those people want, why they would refer in the first place, and then what they would want out of it. So have that conversation with them around the value exchange. Going to the personalization, that thing also continues in this dialogue, this conversation, which is what do people want to see? What are they happy to see? What are they not seeing? But actually, I think this is potentially where AI becomes your friend from an automation point of view. And the so surveys, engaged with people doing it, what they want to see, why they want to see that. And then from the personalization piece, what would people want to be seeing there? How can you automate that to save you time? The other thing I would, though, be really cautious of, or caution people to think about, is when you use loyalty schemes or kind of referrals, you can potentially build up a liability on your bottom line. So you need to look at timestamps as well, which sometimes help from creating an urgency point of view. So, if you do this in the next fortnight. But again, one of the other things is, remember that from an incentivization point of view, if you don't give people enough time to redeem, and then they don't redeem it. So if you give somebody 48 hours to redeem something, and realistically that's forcing them to do something they don't want to do, then there is a negative perception on that, which goes back to the brand. However, if you've given them kind of 2 to 3 weeks for them to redeem whatever it is, or engage, and actually that's a reasonable time they would do something in it, and then they don't necessarily engage with it, then that non-redemption factor is not seen as a negative. It's seen as a positive. You were given the time, but I would put some kind of expiry on that incentive, just so you're not building up a liability. Sorry, there's a lot I could talk about, but I'm not sure how helpful that was, but hopefully it gives a bit of an outline.
Thank you, Rachel. Rachel's covered off some really good points. What's in it for them? And also the personalization and the automation of that. So I won't go over that too much. What I'll add really is around, there's two things. One is a question: why does your business rely on referrals? That's a bit of a red flag for me. Having just one channel which you are relying on to push the business, drive the business, grow it, I think is a little bit risky. So maybe de-risk by having some other channels, and therefore when you're not getting referrals, it's not such a big issue. So I'd definitely think about that. And there's lots of spaces you can go in to talk about that. There's panels every other day, there's conferences and exhibitions and all sorts of business related events that you can go in and talk about collaboration tools, and it will feel like the perfect time to talk about it. So yeah, differentiate where you're actually doing your marketing for the business. And I'll just touch on very lightly the gamification thing. Gamification is working these days. It has to fit, though. I wouldn't say gamify it just for the sake of it, but things like progress bars, can it be tied to CPD logs? Is that going to be helpful? Showing how much you've done over a month, something that they don't have to sort of go and record themselves, but it prints out some kind of progress, and streaks, and those kind of like micro rewards that you can get that you see on really good other platforms and apps. But I think Rachel covered off some really good points. I would just think about that over reliance on referrals, and I'll hand it over to you, Adrian.
Thanks, Nadine. I think I'm going to be a bit contrarian here, because it seems like, similar to the previous question, there's an assumption that the problem is the incentive. So Nadine raised the red flag, and for me it's, before you design rewards, you need to ask the harder question: do your users actually love the product enough to recommend it without being bribed? Because low referrals usually isn't an incentive problem, it's a product problem. So from a product growth perspective, people refer things that make them look good. And if your tool isn't giving them you have to try this moment, no amount of gamification, and I guess also channels, is going to fix that. So from a contrarian perspective, I'd probably start by asking churned users and power users the same question: would you recommend this to a colleague? Why or why not? And I would expect that if you get a decent volume of responses, their answers will tell you whether you need better incentives or channels, or a locksmith moment wherever they might find you, or a better product. Tactically, if referrals if you want to push the referrals piece, I'd make it stupidly easy. Just one click, a pre-written message, and get it done, because friction kills referrals more than a lack of rewards. That's it from me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tim. That was brilliant from all three of you. Let's move on to our next question. This is a fintech, so fintech for SME credit optimization. What the hell is credit optimization? Anyway, they're based in Leeds, seed stage. The situation they're in is they think their value proposition is unclear, especially in such a saturated market. So the question they have, or she has, is that our fintech platform for SME credit optimization isn't gaining traction due to an unclear value proposition in a crowded field. How can we develop a focused go-to-market plan that uses case study-based ads, strategic alliances with regional SME networks, and co-branded content with trusted financial institutions to stand out and drive adoption amongst UK business owners? The team here have religiously mentions value and adding value. You go to somebody who's already established, and they're going to think, what's in it for them? Why on earth would they want somebody who, in their eyes, is a nobody, want to recommend it to their clients? So that's what you got to think. Is it easy at this point in time in your journey to do that? Probably not. Actually, very likely you'll be unable to do that. So personally, I would try and find a way. This to me sounds like the kind of stuff you actually, and I normally try and stay away from that, but you want to find a way to get money to do targeted ads. That's what you really want to do, because this is the kind of stuff that not many people, unless they know you and they really know you do this well, not many people are going to want to jeopardize their market base, their clients, community, whatever you want to call it, and refer them to somebody who's new in the market. Again, I'm saying this without knowing your background and your cloud, because you may have a really trustworthy and large cloud out there that you can use. But otherwise, I would think this is the kind of thing you need to find money and get some targeted ads. Maybe my panelists may not see it this way, so I'd love to hear what they say. Maybe we can start with Nadine, then Adrian, and last but not least, Rachel, please.
My big red flag is up again. Oh, right. One of the bits of advice that I often give when I'm asked for my do's and don'ts is to, don't start a business unless you really understand what you're starting and there is a gap in the market and the concept has been identified and tested. So this makes me feel like that perhaps didn't happen and there was a sprint to create something which now is struggling to get some traction. Again, I could be wrong, but I think if just looking at what you're saying, it's not gaining traction, you're at seed stage already and you have an unclear value proposition in a crowded field. So the questions I would be asking rather than developing a go-to-market plan is actually going back to the basics and thinking, what is the unique selling point of the business? What is the problem that I am solving? Where do I fit within the market? And what is my niche market? And who am I addressing? Like those really fundamental questions so that then you can build your value proposition around that. I think doing a strategy at this point, you might end up back in the same position very, very quickly. Okay, so if we're looking at regional results here, it's about finding out what are the needs of your regional market and how can you support those. So I would start by going and speaking to some of the different communities that actually help regional businesses. I know that we have the Federation of Small Businesses. I know they have a lot of different regions. It might be worth talking to those so that you can figure out what's happening in your specific regions. I know the Chamber of Commerce, they have a London branch. I'm assuming they have other branches all around the country. I would go and I would see what's the need for this. The IOD is also pretty good for this. In the Institute of Directors, they might also be able to give you some advice about this, and then just understand how big is this market for SMEs and this credit support. I've heard a lot about this when it comes to the US, but it's kind of been a bit quiet when it comes to the UK. But I know that investment is down, so I can see why this might work. But I think the whole proposition just needs reworking a bit, and this is the data, insight and research section. Like, figure out what on earth you're doing, who is your target market, how can you address them, and what do they need? And then once you've sorted that all out, you can think about go to market. So I'll hand over. Thank you.
Thanks, Nadine.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, go for it, Anton. Oh,
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Nadine. I 100% agree with all of that. So this is just for emphasis because it's a classic early stage founder problem and one that I made several times. So please don't make it and listen to the likes of Nadine. You've diagnosed the problem, unclear value proposition. That's great. But then you've jumped straight past it to marketing tactics. And so it's going to be a complete waste of your time and funding, because all of that marketing will just amplify a message that is fuzzy, unclear, and so you're just amplifying confusion and potentially burning bridges and relationships and resources, as Anton mentioned. So I would say this comes back to what Nadine was saying, and in terms of what I might do is go back to your best customers, the ones who actually converted, and ask them, what was going on in your business immediately before you signed up, and identify that struggle moment, identify what the reason was that they converted, why they believed you were the best solution for them to hire, to use. To me, that is your value proposition, that you don't need clever marketing to understand your value proposition, but you can then amplify it. So you just go about and loudly say to everyone that falls within that same customer profile, this is our value proposition. So as a very, well, hopefully visual example, you could pick your 3 happiest customers, interview them, and then steal their exact words for your homepage in terms of the struggle, what the outcome that is that they're looking for, and the emotional, social, or functional jobs that your solution helps them with, and that will outperform most of the content that early stage founders create. That's my perspective.
And I'm going to be in violent agreement, rather boringly, with Nadine and Adrian. I think the bit that's missing for me in this is it's saturated. So what actually are you bringing to the market? What problem are you solving? What solution are you actually bringing? It's the so what. So you may have a credit optimization, great. So what? So that you can get better cash flow. So that it goes back to what both Adrian and Nadine have been saying. What was going on in those businesses before? What actually were you then delivering? Are you then delivering? And that's your point of differentiation. And if you can't articulate that, that's red flag. Go back to the drawing board. So yeah, just violent agreement with the other two. Sorry, I know that's a bit boring, but there you go.
That is brilliant. Thank you very much to all 3 of you. That was pure gold. Patrick, do you want to try and unmute and see if you can be audible?
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. That is brilliant. Thank you very much, Patrick. Patrick's put a question in the chat, but I'll let you do a quick introduction and then fire away with your question, buddy.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. So I just recently started a startup a couple of months back, and it involves essentially delivering bite-sized questionnaires to different users through a Chrome extension. So a normal user, excuse me, would download the Chrome extension, and then throughout the day, they'll get a pop-up of, it can be any question related to their interest or any general questions. Now, the reason why I created this product essentially is because, first of all, from personal experience, so I've done a lot of questionnaires for dissertations for university friends, but also I participated myself in essentially volunteering my time for questionnaires for brands. And the question here is, how do I incentivize more people to join? Because the way it works for my business is, the more users I have, the more data points I can gather, essentially. So this is for consumer sentiment. And then that data I then collect, and I can sell it off to brands to let them know essentially what people think about their product or future product or industry as a whole. At the moment, I'm running a promo. So on the 15th of December, as long as you answer 5 questions a day, you enter into a prize pool. I know Rachel talked about prize, kind of incentives being her red flag, but I'm running that, and then someone at random will be chosen for the £50 Amazon voucher. I'm also thinking of now targeting university students to be users, as I think maybe there's a bigger value proposition for brands, because they want to know what people think about the specific brand as early as possible in their lives. And so university students are a a go-to-market strategy that I'm considering. So yeah, that is what my business does, and that's the problem that I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Patrick, can I ask you, so this thing, the £50 Amazon voucher that you have for people to join, is there any specific reason you're doing it? What I'm trying to get to is, do you have a brand that wants a certain question answered and they've asked you to do this, or are you just using this to get people on board to join and download that Chrome extension?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at the moment, it is as a way for me to gauge interest from different people. The strategy behind it, and or rather the thinking behind it, is get this promotion in place. And by the way, I forgot to mention, every question you submit, you get points, and then those points go towards a level. And then once you reach a minimum level, you earn like a £10 Amazon voucher as well. So there's that. That is the normal basis. Obviously, the £50 promo is on top of that. But the reason why I'm setting this up is I want to get as many users as I can, ask as many questions as I can for the target brands, right? So a lot of them, there are a couple questions that I'm asking about insurance companies, a lot of questions that I'm asking about for example, like Apple products and everything. And the idea behind it is get people on board, get a lot of users on board, seeing what they say, package those data points, and then selling that to brands, and then seeing if there is any bite or any pull from them.
I hear.
And that's my way of getting consumers. So, sorry,
all right.
brands, essentially.
No, that's totally cool. Thank you very much for that, and well done on building this. I'll give you my quick 2 pence, and then I'll pass it on to my experts. I think you need to take a hammer and break this model. Instead of that, I would go out there and find a brand, whether it's a university, whether it's an insurance company that you mentioned, or whoever it is, and say, I have got this product and I would love to attach this to your website so you can ask, so people that are navigating your website, they can answer this question. That way you become relevant because you have something specific. This other way is going to cost you gazillions of money and you don't really have any decent reason for it. So first and foremost, by the way, I would focus on being niche and start with one particular demographics, whether you want to go to universities and ask stuff that is related to their university work or their actual university and so on, or maybe to people in insurance or whichever other product, that's fine. You decide that, right? And personally, I would decide that based on a few criteria, such as what you know best, who's got the easiest way to make use of this, and so on, right? But you pick 1 or 2 or maybe 3 tops, and then go to these brands and say, how can we then add this? Maybe have a link to that browser extension or whatever it may be on people's websites, i.e. these brands' websites. That's what I would do instead. And then once you have that, then you take it step by step. One, you build some credibility, you gain some traction, and you also make some money so that you can then invest it in this and getting more people to use it. But personally, that's how I would go at it, not the other way around that you're saying. Nevertheless, I would love to hear my experts on this. So maybe we can go to Rachel, Adrian, and then Nadine, please. What would you do here?
Yeah, it's interesting in terms of smashing the model. I think, and Patrick, sounds really interesting. I'm not sure I fully understand what the problem is that you're solving. So, you know, in the bluntest of the terms, what essentially you're building is a fantastic data pool of 2 pools of data. One of them is users, people who are responding, and then you're getting the insight. So I think my thing would be, you're going to university students, what are they going to give you? Is it insight around brands? Because students don't necessarily have masses of disposable income, but they do tend to spend whatever they've got. So what is it you're looking to get from them? Is it their thoughts that they've then become a target audience for the future? I don't know. Find a brand that really values those students. Then from that endorsement point of view, or getting students to use it, you've got a range of channels that you could go through. So directly to universities, students' unions, again, if you're particularly incentivizing, but you need to make sure your data and your data privacy and policies are really tied up, which you probably have. So I don't want to make any assumptions there, but I think it's the again, it's the so what. Who is this for? Are you going to then sell that data on? Are you going to sell those insights on, or are you going to use that pool of users, respondents to then monetize those? I think get that bit clearer, and then I think your channels then become a bit clearer. As Anton said, actually it becomes more profitable for you and less financially a burden for you that way. But then if you are set on then going to students, there's a range of things, so student unions, social groups, but interestingly, my experiences, and this is counterintuitive, actually good old flyers and getting people to hand things out when students actually still seems to work quite well if you're there on a student night, but that's an entirely different conversation. So over to you guys.
So if you don't
Thanks,
mind me
Rachel.
just quickly answering that, the reason why the product is the way it is to essentially alleviate questionnaire fatigue. So rather than sitting and doing a questionnaire for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then you get tired, halfway through, and you're now, just writing whatever just to get done with the questionnaire, getting it in bite-sized form. You're answering one question, like let's say at the rate of one question an hour. It only takes you a couple of seconds to answer it, so you're not getting that questionnaire fatigue, and therefore, the idea behind it is you're more likely to answer, the question truly, and therefore that increases the value of the information that you're giving out. But yeah, thank you very much for your.
No, that's brilliant. So in which case, Patrick, I think your go-to-market here then is the people who are doing those original questionnaires up front, because the questionnaire fatigue, who gets response fatigue, so it's either, so you're essentially what you're saying, the solution is, oh sorry, the problem is that people are not giving accurate and complete information because they get bored and they're just doing it partially and it's incomplete. So actually the problem doesn't sit with the students or the users. The problem actually sits with those people who are issuing what sound like user unfriendly surveys and insight research polls. So they're the people that I would suggest you need to be talking to. But Nadine and Adrian will probably have views on this as well. So I'll stop monopolizing.
I think that was a great insight, and I think the mechanism is sound, Patrick. But jumping on to what Anton and Rachel have said, I think it's the same lesson as most of the other questions today. What's the job to be done? And Rachel just touched on, well, in terms of respondents, what is the job that they're looking to do? Well, maybe they do want to participate in surveys, but they want to avoid doing so and getting fatigued by it. I guess the deeper question that you can then ask of a wider demographic is, well, why do you answer these surveys? What is the thing that you get out of it? Because from what you described, Patrick, it's a mechanism of answer these questions, get vouchers. That's not a struggle moment or I want this job done moment. It's a transaction, and transactional users give you transactional behavior, grind for the reward, churn, and low quality data, and your brands will pick up on that. So I think what was really interesting about what Anton said is this is like a two-sided play. So you need to understand the job to be done for your big brand, and I'm probably going to limit it to that one, because if you understand that deeply, then you know exactly the data that brand is interested in, and that will then also narrow down within that wider group of people who complete surveys that Rachel mentioned, the particular cohort of people that will be the most relevant to the brand, and that will then hopefully enable you to understand the jobs that they want done better and enable you to create mechanisms that enable better conversion. I think I'll leave it there so that Nadine can take over.
Thank you. Hi, Patrick. Okay, well, I do agree with the other panelists. What is the problem? But they've answered that very well and interrogated you about that. So I'm going to move on to the data gathering section. I run a data and insight company, the Diverse Panel, so I'm well versed in this side of things, and you have a good solution, though we are question mark on the problem. I understand the fatigue thing. I question whether people do sit down for hours doing surveys. I'm not sure they're that long anymore. So if you have some validation around that, not necessarily to answer now, but to add into your pitch deck, or your, when we talk about your business, I would definitely add that in to make it quantified. But if you're going for students, I mean, there's hundreds of universities in the UK in higher education. So, finding your target market shouldn't be a challenge, because, there's, I just did a task looking at universities for something else. And, I think I had made a list of 160 university in not very long. It took me like a couple of, 10, 20 minutes to pull that all out. And then you can then go into those universities and speak to the relevant people. And this is where ambassadorship comes into it. A couple of the other Rachel and Adrian have also mentioned about those that you've already spoken to are a good place to start. And I would say, ambassadorship in universities is very common, and it does have that FOMO feel about it. Like being an ambassador for a brand feels very special. It means you're able to bring people in, which is the question that you're asking: how can I get more people into my business? So they're able to do that and be incentivized to do so. You could possibly run into some issues around the fact that it's monetized in the way it is. However, the data and insight market is like that. So you get points, you get vouchers. That is the way it works at the moment. There's a chance for you to do a bit more quantifying of the person answering the survey. So I know Anton and Adrian have talked about going onto the brand site. Well, you can also look at how can you make sure the person is answering is fit for the questionnaire. So are they, if it's a driving brand, insurance brand, maybe it's car insurance, are you ensuring that they are doing driving lessons or can drive, and therefore become a valid answerer of your questions, right? So we've got to do a bit of that, because your market is so large and so easy to get to. You can get lost in just asking anyone any question. Yes, millennials and Gen Zs and the other generations are important to brands. I also agree with Rachel. I sometimes question this. They don't really have any money, and everything is really expensive. So I do put a question mark on that. But if brands want that information, great. Then the last thing I'll say is go where your audience is. So one, we've talked about universities, go there, right? And don't be afraid to do in-person things to drive people online, right? There's a lot of vox pops that happens, that people just come up to you and ask you questions. You can make a short video of asking those 3 questions in real life, and then showing them how to go onto the browser to answer the questions on the actual browser. And then drive people from offline to online, right? And there's a bit of, they can be felt famous. This is what this kind of generation likes. And TikTok is where they're at, and Reels is where they're at. And these nano influencers is this is what they want to do. So really lean into what they like and where they are, and ensure that whatever you do there in terms of video-based advertising is all driving them back online. And the final thing I might have said that before, but the final thing I'm going to say is, I'm not really one to download a Chrome browser extension. And also you're limiting people to one browser, and the hurdle is going to get them to do that extension download. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, because it's your business and you understand how that will work, but are there any options? Because that could be a barrier to conversion. So I'll leave that for you as a question. Going in the right path, there's loads of solutions here. And yeah, not sure what the problem is. Seems like you're doing good. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Steve. And if I may add one last thing, Patrick, I've just done a search and it tells me, so I'm in Battersea and our council is Wandsworth Council. It tells me Wandsworth Council website gets 500,000 visits per year. I think it says per year. The point I'm trying to make is, when you approach these potential partnerships that I mentioned earlier, i.e. go to the brands first rather than the users, they're going to want to know about the security of it, that also Nadine slightly touched on it, as to why she doesn't download Chrome extensions. Neither do I, and many people stay away from them. So maybe if you can, I don't know if you've come across somebody called Grow London. They're part of London and Partners, which is the mayor's program to help businesses grow. From what I can tell you in London from the registration on Luma. So I would go and reach out to these people at Grow London, as well as people in local councils that are responsible for managing the website or maybe delivering services, etc., and say, if we can have this linked on your website and then have that prize that you mentioned, for example, introduced, whereby, out of the people that download this, somebody will get XYZ prize, you are more likely, because no matter what you'll do, no matter how much money you'll spend, you can't get to a point where you have 500,000 visitors per year, right? I mean, that could take years. So the point I'm trying to make is maybe find a way to piggyback on those brands and then see what you can get. But maybe, if the security is out there, and I know there's at the moment, especially central government, there's a huge drive to bring everything to the age of AI. You literally now have police forces today, or was it yesterday, 2 major police forces in the UK are already trialing and piloting AIs when you call them up. So the point I'm trying to make is there's a huge drive there. If you can find a way to partner with them, I think you'll have better luck. I hope you found it helpful, Patrick.
I certainly did. Thank you very much. First time being here, and I've just gone on your website and I see that you guys do this on a regular basis. So, yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and well done, by the way, on what you've done so far, and best of luck. Please do feel free to join us again. As you rightly mentioned, we run 6 regular sessions: Mondays talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances. So 1, would love to hear on your progress, and 2, would love to see if we can help you on other matters as well. And feel free to reach out on LinkedIn as well, Patrick, to any of us. But otherwise, thank you again. Now, we are 2 minutes over the line. I don't want to keep you for too long, but if you want to give us some parting words before we let you go, team, I'd appreciate it. So maybe we can start with the ladies of the house, Rachel, then Nadine, and last but not least, Adrian. Anything before we let you go? Especially you, Rachel, that I think this is the last session until sometime in the new year.
Yeah, I can't do until the new year. So thank you. Again, I think one of the things we all fall into when we're doing our own businesses, whether it's a product or a service, is we focus on us, and fundamentally we are the ones who matter least. So for me, it's always what's in it for the end user, what's in it for the customer. It's that what problem are we solving in their language. So that's just the key thing for me. And the other thing is keep on at it, because there is opportunity there. So thanks, Anton. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having me, Anton. I thought today was really great. I enjoyed working with some new panelists. And what a great session. Thank you for the question, Patrick. Live question too. That was wonderful. What I would say is don't run before you can walk. Okay, and that means in order to be the most efficient with your time is to really spend that time in the beginning, the ideation, the creation, the validation stage of your business. Ensure that you know why you're creating something, who it is for, and there's actually a market and you fit within that market. I think we've all made mistakes as founders, running into a market and not really understanding what we're doing, and then having to go backwards and forwards, or to abandon. So in order to avoid that, I would say spend more time at the beginning section, and then you will be flying when it comes to growth. And we are here to help. So please reach out to us and we will be happy to support your growth. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My first startup to scale up session, and really enjoyed it and the questions. So I think my parting words are stop guessing what your customers want and ask them, and then use their words to drive your language market fit, write your pitch decks, write your homepage, help you develop your product, because they're telling you exactly what they want. and develop your growth strategy. That's the whole game, and yeah, it will all work if you let them contribute. Thank you.
Here, here. Well, thank you very much, team. I really appreciate your time and brilliant input today. A couple of things before my parting words. Number one, we run 6 regular sessions: Mondays talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month is UK startup law, and third Friday of each month is UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can register for free on any future session via our website, startup2scaleup.club. So again, it's startup2scaleup.club. And there you'll be able to pick whichever you want, or even better, once you register in one of them on our Luma schedules and our Luma calendar, then you'll get alerts for any future session. We also have an amazing community on WhatsApp. We've got various groups where you can connect with fellow founders, investors, operators, and of course, our second to none panelists/mentors. You can send questions ahead of each Q&A. By the way, I've just put a link in our chat here on Microsoft Teams for our Startup Growth group. You can send questions ahead, as I said, but you can also discuss topics that we touch on each Q&A post session. We also, a quick reminder to those lovely people that followed us via live streams today, whether that was LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember we are unable to monitor your questions there live. And whilst we appreciate you joining us, we can guarantee that you'll have a much better experience if you join us on Microsoft Teams instead. It's audio only, by the way, which means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. And for that matter, you could be walking your dog in Surrey, working from a shared office in Shoreditch, cooking lunch in Liverpool, changing baby nappers in Glasgow, or maybe jogging somewhere by a canal or somewhere near a park. It's easy to join and it's totally free. Now, as far as my parting words are concerned, just remember, the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, have an amazing afternoon ahead of you, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Fundraising Q&A. We've got some brilliant investors joining us who will take questions from you on anything to do with fundraising or your business. With that in mind, thank you and God bless. Bye-bye for now.